Uh-huh. Do you want another one? How come with the camera you're eating half of them? Normally you just spit them out. You want that? Oh, delicious stuff. How about this one that you spit out earlier? Oh, you're gonna eat it now. You're gonna eat the lettuce now. How about this one? You're funny. It's all gone. Lola eats salad. Lola eats salad. Yes. Hey Lola, do you want a cookie? Do you want a pup cup? Do you want Schnuggles? Do you want Schnuggles? Do you want kisses? You want lettuce? Okay, here. Here. You do want lettuce. You have another piece of lettuce. If it's human, it's good, even if it's yucky, huh? Want one more? Good stuff. That's good stuff, like Lola. Lola's a good girl. Lola's the good girl. Yes, Lola's the good girl. Hi, we are gonna check in about what I've read so far this month. Do you see her chilling back there? And the stack of books I'm hoping to still get through in the last 10 days of the month. I mean, what's a reader if not a little overly ambitious? So I have a ton of books that I have finished reading this month. I haven't yet shared about any of them, and so we're going to share about all of them right now. There will be another check-in because I will, even today, finish just a handful of books. I did that thing I used to do this month, where I just am reading a billion books at one time, dipping in and out of them and finishing them as I finish them. But for a long time there, I was kind of stuck in on reading one book at a time, starting many and then kind of honing in on one and finishing it. But not this month. This month feels very much like my old school reading. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's just the nature of middle grade. I don't know. I also read a lot of, so far anyway, I've read a lot of nonfiction. Almost half of what I've read has been nonfiction. So that's fun. Let's do this. I don't think I said this already, so let me say it now. I'm Jenna. This is Books Love Jenna, and this is my March wrap-up video. The first thing that I finished, and I'm only going to hold this up for a second, and then I'll hold up the actual book because it's so shiny. The first thing that I finished is The Teacher of Nomadland, a World War II story by Daniel Nayeri. Now I'm going to show you the beautiful hardcover underneath that dust jacket. Both the dust jacket and the book are beautiful, but this book, I mean, this is next level. This book is beautiful. It is a World War II story, but it's a World War II story unlike any that I had read previously. This one is takes place in Iran. With all the things going on in the world right now, I am a little bit flabbergasted by the amount of books about Iran that have come into my life in the last year or so that, I mean, I could count on one finger probably the amount of books I've read that feature Iran heavily until this past year or so, when I, way back in August, decided that my 9th graders would read Persepolis, when I last year read Lion Women of Tehran and it became my favorite book of the year for 2025, when I decided I wanted to read a Daniel Nayeri because, you know, FOMO, and this is the one that appealed to me the most. I just feel like, and then everything started with Iran, like all these decisions were made prior to current world events. I just find it very, very interesting. I don't know what it means. Probably nothing, but it might. And I find myself just thinking about current day as I read about the past. This is a World War II novel, and you're thinking, what does that have to do with Iran? Because that is not the normal setting or the usual setting for most books about World War II or that take place during World War II. In this book, we have a brother and a sister, and they lost their father to accidental death. He took it upon himself to use his teaching degree to go and meet with and teach nomads. He and some other men were having a lesson out in the wilderness and on a mountain pass, I think, or close to a mountain pass, and they were mistaken for a militant group and they were killed. And so he has left his son, particularly, this legacy of education and going out into the world and doing good and being helpful. At the start of the book, their mother has just passed away, and they are left to be cared for by family, but family is very different ideologically from what they have become accustomed to through their own family unit. And so he's sent to go work with a relative at a store, and she is sent to go take care of, be the companion for their grandmother. And it's a very much a girls should be seen and not heard sort of situation, and she's particularly feeling the pressure of it, and he particularly feels the pressure to take care of his sister, get them back together under the same roof, and get back out there to continue his father's work. But also thinking, if we can get a nomad group to take us in, then we can also live with them. So he is trying to continue his father's work, but also care for them on his own merit. And he successfully gets them. It's a very short book. All these things happen very quickly, and it is middle grade. So it's heavy, but it's not overly heavy. He gets them out to go find these nomads, but when he gets there, he's never taught before. He's been taught, and he knows how his father taught, particularly people how to read. But it's a hard sell. It's a very hard sell for the leader of these nomads or this nomad group, who has to approve whether or not the children or the women or the men in this village have the time to give to this, whether the payoff of this will be worth valuable time that they could be using to serve the community or to work. And he decides that it is not. Even though the kids and the community, he really gets them interested in it. But it is decided, no, not at this time at least. No, he can't join them. He can't teach them. He needs to move on. And so they do that. They decide they've got a plan B. They're going to trek through the wilderness to get to a bigger city and move forward from there. On their way, they run into quite a few issues, one of which being a very scary, unpredictable soldier. One of which being a gray area American soldier, or British, not American, British soldier. And one of which being a boy who apparently has gone without things that he needs for a very long time. And through their, I don't want to call them adventures, through their encounters, a story unfolds. A series of events, of causes and effects unfolds that leads to quite a impactful, powerful, and touching conclusion. What you might not know is that a large number of Jews from Poland in World War II were evacuated to Iran. And that, very much like the United States today, there was a great division in Iran. This is democratic Iran, right? So there was a big division in the country about whether or not they had any obligation to help these people or to host the British troops or any of this. And all of that is very expertly portrayed in the novel. I think that this was an excellent read, and I highly recommend it. It does have a happy ending, I'll tell you that, because it gets a little rough halfway through. But yeah, this was great. This was very good, and a really great way to start off middle grade March. Next, I did a reread of this nonfiction. This is The Haunting of Alma Fielding, a true ghost story by Kate Summerskell. In February, if you've ever watched my TBRs, you know that sometimes this year I play a little game with some Jane Austen or some Bronte-themed playing cards that just kind of help me get on my larger TBR shelves and randomly pick some books off of them that I might overlook over and over and over again. The beginning of the year, at the end of last year, I curated the shelves that I have here in my dining room to house some favorites. Some of these shelves are just favorites, and I don't include them in the game, but mostly they are the books that I want to prioritize trying to get to this year. And there's way more on here than I will definitely be able to get to this year, but the game just helps me to randomly select, and then I read what I want to read. Some of them are favorites that I want to reread. Some of them are favorites from last year that I'm just hosting here. And a lot of them are books that I have not read that have been on my shelves for a very, very long time. So that being said, the cards in February picked this. I didn't get to it in February, but I got to it in March, and I wanted to do a reread. I have all of the Kate Summerskell books that I own on, I think that's 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them, including this one, on my TBR shelves this year, because I would like to revisit all of them at some point. And the cards picked this one. I didn't think that I was going to be interested in it at this time. I didn't think I was ready for it. This is a very, very interesting conglomeration of topics. It has to do with a woman who believes that she is haunted by a poltergeist, and the Society for Cyclical Research agrees that something is going on. Kate Summerskell ties this into the history of spiritualism, particularly what's going on with spiritualism and spiritual tactics, war tactics in World War II. And psychosis, I guess. What the ultimate outcome of this is that you are left to make your own decision, which, I mean, that's what Kate Summerskell does. She does this incredible historical research, creates through lines for you, and says, this is what I see, do you see it too? And I remember the first time I read this. This was my lowest rated Kate Summerskell. I love her writing. But this was my lowest rated Kate Summerskell, and I remember not really getting it. Like, I got it, but I didn't buy it. And this time I read it and I was enthralled. I think that if you are interested in any of those topics, human psychosis, the psyche, the human psyche, the power of the mind, difficult family relationships or family histories, poltergeists, spiritualism, World War II. If you're interested in any of those things, then you should pick this up. I don't want to tell you too much about Ms. Alma Fielding. She was a real person. She is a real documented case. You may decide that this was completely in her head and she actually created these things and that there was a lot of manipulation going on. You may decide that she was, completely out of her mind. All of these things, she created these things spiritually, with a spiritual manifestation. Or you may decide that there is a poltergeist. There's a reasonable argument for all of them. Kate Summerskell does not necessarily give you those arguments, but she lays out all the material, and those are the things you can walk away from the book with. And it's fascinating. If you've never read a Kate Summerskell, I think you should start with The Wicked Boy. I don't think you should start here. But if you do start here, let me know how you feel about it. Then I read, not on my TBR, but I just felt like doing it, and the hold came in from my library, so I listened to this mostly. But I did also read it some. I read the fifth. I read the 5th book in the Timeless series. This is Every Hour Until Then, and this was my favorite one yet. I have been loving this series. I started reading it last year. Enjoyed the first one. It felt a little bit repetitive in the way that we kept being told through the characters' inner dialogue, exactly how the time travel worked. If you're not familiar, this is a time travel, dual timeline, but single character time travel novel. And I wasn't sure I was going to continue, but I did. I picked up the second book eventually and did not get on with the second book at all, and thought, I don't know if I'm going to continue. Everybody was talking about how great the next one was in the series, so I picked it up and loved it. And then I read the 4th one and really enjoyed it. That one was about like pirates and bootleg smugglers. And then I picked up this one, and whoa! So many of my favorite niche historical topics from when I was a high schooler and a middle schooler came together in this one. It is about time travel. It is a romance, but it is also about Freemasonry, and it is about Jack the Ripper. What is it about these things that capture people's imaginations? I don't know, but they have definitely captured mine. And I was taken back to all of the information that I remember, so meticulously gathering from different fictions and nonfictions that I read as I read this new strange mashup of those two things. So this was interesting because in this one, our main character, what is her name, Catherine? Yes, Catherine. Our main character, like her predecessors, has a certain age by which she must decide which of multiple lives, in her case 2, she is going to continue living and which will end. She has a very, very difficult high-stakes choice to make. Higher stakes, I feel, than we've seen thus far. Because she unlike previous characters, she is very close in year in both of her lives. She's in the late 1880s and the 1920s. Normally, it's like the 1700s and the 1700s and the 1900s. Normally, there's quite a big gap. In this case, she could be alive. In her second life, she could also be alive in her first life. People who knew her in her first life are definitely still alive in her second life. And this is difficult because she looks exactly the same. And they will have aged, right? But she looks exactly the same in both lives. She has a very high stakes choice to make in which life she's going to live. Yes, there's a romance that pulls her to one life over another. But even greater than that, she has a sister in her 1880s life that her 1920s life knows is a victim of Jack the Ripper. And she would like to change history. This is the first time that a character has decided that they will change history. Usually they're like, oh, what if this changes history? What will happen? Will I still exist in the future? Like, what will be the differences? No, in this one, she's like, what will happen? I don't know, but I have to keep my sister from being the last victim of Jack the Ripper. And so in both lives, she's trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is, the identity of Jack the Ripper. She's trying to keep her sister safe. Something strange happens right at the very beginning of the book in which her sister is kicked out of the family with no explanation. This happens in the first couple pages of the book. Kicked out with no explanation to go and take care of herself and find her own way. And Catherine is told never to mention her name again. Don't even think about her. She's dead to us. And we don't know why. And so Catherine, in both timelines, is trying to beat the clock because there's an end date on her sister, and she wants to keep her sister alive. What a story. What a story. It was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Like I said, my favorite one yet. Absolute favorite one yet. Then I finished this one for middle grade March. This is Beyond Mulberry Glen by Millie Florence with illustrations by Astrid Shekels. The quality of this book is outstanding. The pages are thick, it's heavy, it feels like substantial. The premise of the book is solid. Individual sentences in this story are kind of exquisite at times. Can something be kind of exquisite? I don't know. They are. And also, it was very boring. It was slow. It was not memorable, really. I don't really remember much about it. I don't think for the premise that it has, I don't think that the story is complete enough. Everything felt over-edited, overwritten. You end up with a lot of individual beautiful sentences that don't flow together. Yeah, it was okay. It's a found family story. It's an adventure story. It's a fantasy set. It's a little cottagecore. There's a cute little group of people who have to come together to accomplish an important high stakes task. These are young people. On paper, it's everything that particularly a younger me would have loved. But in execution, it was just so. It is a beautiful book, and I will probably keep it because it is a beautiful book. But if I ever do a big move again, or the next time I do a big move, probably, throwing it over the side of the ship. So until that moment, I probably will keep it, though. It's not terrible. It's not bad. I did finish it. High praise. It was just not, I don't even think it's a just not for me book. I think it is a for me book. Just it's not that it's not done well. It's that it's overdone. It's overcooked. It's delicious, but it's overcooked. Or it could have been delicious, but it's overcooked. Step back a little. Let it flow a little. Let it have a little more personality. It was so edited that it felt controlled. I don't know how else to put it. Sad, but true. No, I did not read this month. I finished it this month, but I did not read it this month. At the end, I think it was December 28th, I started my journey with Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen. And I may never be the same. Yeah, and I finished it in mid-March, early-ish March. And I did set aside more time than that. This was very readable. I understand why people think that it's going to be scary, that it might feel intimidating. It's an epic poem from the Elizabethan period. It is not Shakespeare. It's not the Green Knight. It's not Chaucer. I'll tell you that. It is, go into it and read it as if you're reading prose, free verse. Yes, it is not free verse, but it is incredibly readable. And don't trick your mind into thinking that you are about to read highbrow poetry like a sonnet or something. This isn't Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This is very approachable. Will you get everything? It is poetry as well. So every word and image and story is loaded. It's loaded. But I would say half the time it's loaded with this like coarse ribald humor and allusions to some of those authors that I've just named, like Chaucer or Virgil, Homer. It is not necessary that you get all of the allusions. I think that is something that a lot of people find difficult or intimidating about poetry in general. What if I don't get it? This is a series of narrative poems. They're allegorical. Each knight in here represents a different morality that you, as the reader or hearer, should endeavor to attain or to aspire to. But I just said something that I think is vital: the reader or the hearer. So these are also, they're not only meant to be read, they're meant to be heard and understood when heard. They're also very funny, very ribald, sometimes shockingly, graphically grotesque, sometimes very heartwarming, sometimes incredibly sad. It's very long, and it's gonna hit everything that you can think of and more. And it's doing it in story form, and it's not one, I mean, it kind of is one long story, but more episodic. So think Pickwick Papers meant to tickle the fancy of Queen Elizabeth. That's a little bit what it feels like, with some really, really, make your face blush if you get it humor. It is not highbrow. It's not highbrow. I know why you might think it is, but it's really not. Beowulf, a story of war for warriors fighting dragons and monsters, is more highbrow than this. The Green Knight, which is also pretty ribald, is more highbrow than this. Yeah, it's funny, it's fast-paced, it's pleasing. Let's give you just a little taste, because I know, I can hear you out there going, whatever, she's an English teacher, she's read a lot of stuff, she doesn't know what it's like for the normal person. So here we go. A gentle knight was pricking on the plain, clad in mighty arms and silver shield, wherein old dents of deep wounds did remain, the cruel marks of many a bloody field. Yet arms, till that time, did he never yield. His angry steed did chide his foaming bit, as much disdaining to the curb to yield. Full jolly knight he seemed, and fair did sit, as one for knightly guests and fierce encounters fit. So we know there's this typical knight. This is the first stanza of the first canto. This is the introduction. He's gonna find like a secret place in the woods and find something gross inside it. This is the 15th stanza of the first canto. And as she lay upon the dirty ground, her huge long tail, her din all overspread, yet was in knots and many bows upwound, pointed with mortal sting. Of her there bred 1,000 young ones, which she daily fed, sucking upon her poisonous dugs, each one of sundry shapes, yet all ill-favored. Soon as that uncouth light upon them shone, into her mouth they crept, and sudden all were gone. The key, I think, to this is to get yourself a good audio version. Get the one from Audible. You can get them from libraries. I could have gotten mine from the library, but I was going to spend a lot of time, with that narrator, and I wanted a voice that I enjoyed, a tone that I enjoyed, but also I didn't want to feel pressured. That was the whole point of reading this from December till now. And having planned for even more time needed than that, because I thought it would be hard, and I thought that it would be slow, and I thought that it would be mostly drudgery with a few minutes here and there of sunshine. But it wasn't that. I would say that each day that I dipped into it, I read a little more than I anticipated I would read that day, just because I was interested. Just because I wanted to know, just because I was enjoying the feel of the language. So get yourself a copy of the audio, get yourself a copy of the physical, set aside 10 minutes a day to listen and read to it, and you'll get through it. You'll do more than 10 minutes. I promise you will. I feel accomplished. having finished it. And also, when I finished it, I felt like, what do I do with my life now? What do I do now? Oh, it's fun stuff. The next thing that I finished reading was for the book club that I host here on BookTube. Books Love Everyone. And our fiction pick for the month is Muriel Sparks, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. And I have read this, I don't even know how many times. I really enjoy this book, which might feel like a strange thing to say. We haven't had our discussion about it yet. We're doing that a week from today, from when I'm recording this. We're doing that next Saturday. But this won't go out until after that conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts, I think, or some of my thoughts, because no one will see it until we've had our conversation. Why do I keep coming back to this book? So you're not meant to like any of these people. It's a story about a teacher who's off the rails, enamored with fascism in the lead up to World War II, a Scottish teacher. And it's about her form of girls, her class of girls, that she gives what she thinks is her whole life to. All of her knowledge, all of her wisdom, all of her hopes for the future, all of her time. She is overly self-confident in thinking that she knows what's right, not only for the world, but particularly for the young women that she is raising. Because that's what a teacher does. A teacher raises children. Educates them, yes, but particularly like homeroom teachers and advisors, or English teachers, humanities teachers, I really think that a huge part of our job is teaching them how to be people in the world. And she takes that, like me, I'm also a teacher, she takes that incredibly seriously. But she is also overly confident that she understands the global sphere and what is unfolding in the world and the path that people should go down. Now, it is not a shock that a British national would be enamored at this time with fascism. Fascism was a much more popular idea in England at the time than people in the United States, anyway, are aware of or would like to think of. And so that aspect of her character is given to us and feels shocking sometimes. It feels shocking that there would be anyone who could look at, she's okay with Hitler, but she's particularly interested in Mussolini and what's going on in Italy. And it's in hindsight, for people now to read it then and to think that you wouldn't see it coming, I would just like to ask you to watch our news today. Like, so many things are happening, and yeah, some people can see it coming and some people can't, or they missee things. So this fascism was a big deal. There were a lot of people in the UK who thought it was going to be a good thing. It's also an elitist belief system. It caters to those who think that they're the best of the best. And one of the things that Miss Jean Brodie calls her girls is the creme de la creme, the cream of the cream, the tip of the top, because she believes she educates to excellence. That is an outlook on life for which an ideology like fascism is appealing. So she is teaching her girls fascism, even though it's not part of the curriculum. She teaches them many things that are not part of the curriculum. She opens up their world in ways that she doesn't take responsibility for. And her girls, who she gives her all to, betray her in the end. Because in reality, she has betrayed them. She has betrayed their innocence for her own elevation. I was going to say amusement, but it's not really amusement. She really does think that what she's doing is good. It's not. It's not. And so if you don't like these people, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I don't generally enjoy reading books where I don't like any of the characters. But the way that Muriel Spark writes this set of characters, and the way that it's not told linearly, that time becomes events as opposed to causes and effects, or instantaneous causes and effects. There's something incredibly appealing and intriguing about that to my own manner of thinking. I remember the first time I read this, I was just blown away with the way that the story was written. There are multiple perspectives and multiple timelines happening at once, and I never got lost. It's so short, but it's so complex. And it's very much playing with your concept of knowledge, your concept of foresight, or your ability at foresight, and the role hindsight plays, the kind of eraser or whiteout that hindsight becomes, ironically, because it should give you more insight. And for some characters it does, but maybe a greater understanding, but maybe not the correct understanding. Ultimately, Jean Brodie is held accountable for her actions, and that accountability is seen by her. Oh, I have to sneeze. That accountability is felt by her as a kind of betrayal. And it is, but she, as I've already said, has betrayed them as well, without intention. And they too, her students too, betray her without intention. Not the intention to betray, but the intention to accountability. Accountability, because there are some horrific outcomes from her irresponsible use of power. And I think that you can probably make the same understatement about fascism. Horrific outcomes for misuse of power. The layers of this very, very short, shocking gut punch of a book astound me. And I'm not even touching on everything that I could touch on, like religion and history. This is just the bare bones of what's in here. Or being a girl, what it means to be in a group, mob thinking. There's just so much in here. It, again, is astounding to me, just the quality of the storytelling and the writing. It lends itself to multiple reads. I'm also like, I'm talking to you, I'm trying to calculate in the back of my head, like, how many times have I read this book? I first encountered it in I know that it was like the first year that I lived in a certain place. So I first encountered it in 2011 or 2012, and probably 2011 because it was in the summertime. So 2011, and it's now 2026. And I think I've probably read it 6 or 7 times. I read it last year and I read it this year, and I've focused on different things every time. Every time I reread this book, it unveils something new to me, and I love that. I love that in a book. So a couple of passages that I thought I would share. It says, "The influence of one's teens are very important," said the man. "Oh yes," said Sandy, "even if they provide something to react against." "What was your biggest influence then, Sister Helena? Was it political? Personal? Was it Calvinism?" "Oh no," said Sandy. But there was a Miss Jean Brodie, in her prime. She clutched the bars of the grille as if she wanted to escape from the dim parlor beyond, for she was not composed like the other nuns who sat when they received their rare visitors, well back in the darkness with folded hands. But Sandy always leaned forward and peered, clutching the bars with both hands, and the other sisters remarked it and said that Sister Helena had too much to bear from the world since she had published her psychological book, which was so unexpectedly famed. But the dispensation was forced upon Sandy, and she clutched the bars and received the choice visitors, the psychologists and the Catholic seekers, and the higher journalist ladies and the academics who wanted to question her about odd psychological treatises on the nature of moral perception, called The Transfiguration of the Commonplace. It is not to be supposed that Miss Brodie was unique at this point of her prime, or that since such things are relative, she was in any way off her head. She was alone merely in that she taught in a school like Marcia Blaine's. And this one. There was nothing Miss Brodie could not yet learn. She boasted of it, and it was not a static Miss Brodie who told her girls, "These are the years of my prime. You are benefiting by my prime," but one whose nature was growing under their eyes as the girls themselves were under formation. It extended this prime of Miss Brodie's, still in the making when the girls were well on in their teens, and the principles governing the end of her prime would have astonished herself at the beginning of it. And finally, this one. By whom was this picture painted? Nobody knew. It was painted by Rossetti. Who was Rossetti, Jenna? I said Jenna. That's me. Who was Rossetti, Jenny? A painter, said Ginny. Miss Brodie looked suspicious. A genius, said Sandy, to come to Ginny's rescue. A friend of, said Miss Brodie. Swinburne, said a girl. Miss Brodie smiled. You have not forgotten, she said, looking round the class. Holidays or no holidays, keep your history books propped up in case we have any further intruders. As a teacher, I read this and just cringe with every good-intentioned but incredibly wrong choice this woman makes. There's one last. I didn't put a sticky note by it, but I just realized that I did mark it. One last passage. Oh. We were having a little talk there, weren't we? And I just left you. I got a phone call, and then maintenance came, and then it was lunchtime, and then it was time, or actually it was time to take Lola out, and then it was lunchtime, and now it's a few hours later, not SpongeBob hours, like actual hours. And we've changed the location, but I was finishing this up, there was, I think I was about to read you a quote. I didn't go back to look at what I had recorded or where I had stopped. And maintenance just came to change some light bulbs in the hallway, LED light bulbs, and to get to them is kind of difficult, and we're supposed to ask them to change them for us. So I waited until there are 4 there are 4 light fixtures in my hallway, and I waited for him to I waited for them to mostly all be weird. Like, they'll do a flickery thing, they'll do a we're not going to turn on today thing, but we'll turn on tomorrow. I waited till they all got weird and then put in the order to have them all done at the same time. So he came to do that, and then it's been a while. She is now absolutely exhausted because she had a visitor, she had food, she had a walk, she met so many people. We almost had to attack a totally dead and drowned rat that was lying in the grass at our favorite spot. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So we're back though. And I don't remember what I said, but I think I was about to read you my final little saved part of this, and no time will have passed for you. I'm the only one. I'm the only one who has been affected by this. Okay, so it says, Miss Brodie telephoned for Sandy to come to see her early in September. She had returned from Germany and Austria, which were now magnificently organized. After the war, Miss Brodie admitted to Sandy as they sat in the Braid Hill Hotel, Hitler was rather naughty, but at this time, she was full of her travels and quite sure the new regime would save the world. The prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Prime's not so prime anymore. Okay. I'm sure I had other really glorious thoughts to say about the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, but I have completely lost my train of thought about that book. So let's just start fresh with the next one that I finished, which was the nonfiction for the book club that I host. Books Love Everyone. And this is a biography of the Mitford sisters. And this is excellent. If you want to know more about fascism in England, this is a great one. If you want to know more about British people from the UK who were totally enamored with Hitler and everything that was happening with fascism, this is a great one to read. If you want to know about people who were totally against it, great one to read. If you want to know about people who were just, wanting to be part of what in all, for all given purposes is just the 1940s era ton, this is it. This is it. This is the story of a family of sisters and a brother, but it mostly focuses on the sisters who all grew up together, raised by the same parents in the same place at the same time, who went in vastly different directions in life, ideologically, politically, financially, location-wise. One becomes extremely interested in death and is the first person to write about the death industry in the United States. One becomes the Duchess of Derbyshire. One falls in love with Hitler. One becomes the most hated woman in England because of her connection to Mosley, the leader of the British fascist party. One becomes an amazing author. They all go different directions. They all have these different outlooks on life, and yet they're all raised by the same people. And it's not just, but it's partly a reflection of the time and the location, the setting in which they are born, and what's going on in the world during that time. Absolutely fabulous, yes, fascinating too. And it paired so well with The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. The next book I have is actually not the Wingfeather Saga. This is a placeholder, and it is holding space for, oh, I'm not going to remember the name of the book, but I'm going to put it up here. It was about MK Ultra. The title is something like MK Ultra and the CIA or something, and the name of the person who was the whistleblower person. Maybe not whistleblower, reluctant. Informant, the informant. This was just a fascinating piece of history about the CIA and what happens when power goes unchecked. It has a lot to do with The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Perhaps that's why I was totally drawn into it. I don't know. My mind might have just been like on that track. So this came in, I had it on hold, and I must have had it on hold for a very long time. But it came, the Libby Hold came in, and I had the audiobook, and it's my policy to give a good 15-ish minutes to anything that comes in to decide if I'm going to listen to it or not. I try not to, I check out a lot of books. I put a lot of books on hold, and when those things come in, I try not to keep them too long. And I don't like to do the like suspend or whatever. It's just messy. It just gets too messy for me. If it's something that I want to listen to in the future, but not right now, I'll write it down and come back to it later. And if it's something that I want to listen to right now, I'll listen to it right now. And if it's something that just immediately repels me, then I'm done. I'll turn it back in. So I was giving it its 15 minutes on my walk home one day, and realized that I was completely engrossed, that I had listened to the whole walk home and didn't want to turn it off when I got home, actually. So I think that it's a testament to the writing. The writing is pretty engaging. It does read like a nonfiction, informative kind of book. But I think it's also just a testament to the content of the book. It is not, with a title like that, on a topic like that, you might think that it's a little bit sensational or going to be a little bit sensationalized. It's really not at all. It is researched. It's a researched history into the formation of the CIA, the role of the CIA, the overreach of the CIA, the lack of checks and balances that were enforced upon the CIA, and how that led to, at a time in history when everyone was afraid of things, of war, of the Soviets, of falling behind, of aliens and people having special powers, ESP and all these things. At a time when there was a lot of genuine fear about a lot of things, and a lot of suspicion about other people. This is Red Scare time. This is McCarthy era. This is coming out of war, possibly going into another war. This is a scary time. Atomic weaponry, Area 51, all of these things, and this fear, this paranoia, really, that other countries, that enemy countries are, or adversarial countries, we'll say, not enemy, adversarial countries are ahead of us in ways that we can't even identify. That there are supernatural dangers that other countries have been able to harness that give them an advantage that we will never be able to match if we don't beat them to things. And so, there were fears of things like the Soviets being able to clone, they didn't use the term clone, but like to create a exact replica down to the genetics of an individual, like on a molecular level of it, like cloning, but they didn't use that term. But there was a real fear that they had that power, and that if they could even just glimpse one of our agents, they would be able to create a counter agent that was exactly like them, that could infiltrate any system that we might have. fears like that, genuine fears like that. And so suddenly the CIA, which was not created for this purpose, began to be tasked with, or to take on tasks of trying to preempt attacks of that fashion and create our own force that could do better things, bigger and better things in that arena. And it's just wild. They used the public, unconsenting, non-consenting citizens to do experiments on a regular basis, in large numbers, documented. There's all sorts of things that, people say today, how they were involved in like gate programs, things like that. I have my own story. I won't share it. But there are all sorts of things like that, which to an extent feel real and to an extent feel like, yes, I know that's how you feel. But the things in this book are absolutely documented, and people were held accountable for these things. Just administering LSD to people who had no idea they were being given LSD. Them, among themselves, would use it not recreationally. Like they would do, they would like lace the coffee pot with it and then watch their colleagues lose it. Just as a fun joke, They didn't understand, and they didn't take the time to understand the implications. And things went really, really wrong to the point where they murder someone. I highly recommend this book. If you enjoy history, and if you enjoy kind of counterculture stuff, it's very well written. It's very well researched. I'm not doing it justice because there are things in it that are like the most important things that are revealed to you as if this is a novel. Like it's written in it's got a plot. And I don't want to ruin it for you, but it was an excellent listen. I'm sure it's an excellent read as well. And also was a complete surprise. Did not intend to read that at all. The next one that I finished, I wanted to read in February, but its release date got pushed back, or its delivery date got pushed back by a couple weeks. And so it didn't come in until the very end of February, beginning of March. And so I finally did read this. And this is just, did my Bronte heart so good. This is Charlotte Bronte's Life Through Clothes by Eleanor Hoyton. Not sure how to say that. And this is about society and clothing and Charlotte. And what it does is takes certain pieces of her attire that exist. It gives you samples. It gives you a sketch. It gives you labels. And it talks about the choices that Charlotte made and how those choices demonstrate, I'm looking for another picture, how those choices demonstrate society and politics and economy and religion and all sorts of things at that time. So it's like a history, a textile history, a design formation history, a Bronte history, and a feminist history, all wrapped up in one. And it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I will definitely be reading it again, probably many times, because there's so much in it. And this first time I read it, I just kind of poured over images and consumed the text because it was fascinating. It's very readable, and she's very knowledgeable. But the next time I want to read it, I want to go really slow. I want to go very, very slow. Yeah, I cannot recommend this enough if you are interested in fashion, design, textiles, history, social history, politics, psychology, or the Brontes. Highly, highly recommend. The next thing I finished was this one. I think this is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. This was The Night War by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And I loved this. I know that I have even said in this video already that I have often said that I'm just kind of over World War II novels. I've read so many books set in World War II or around World War II this month. And I really think that if they're coming from a unique perspective, I still love them. As long as they're telling new stories. I reached a point where, I had read in my life hundreds of books set in or about World War II, and they were all telling the same story eventually. But now it seems that we're digging into things that have previously been unexplored. Like Iran, like Catherine de Medici. So in The Night War, this is a middle grade book, and it is, like I said, set in World War II. It starts like a lot of World War II books start. This one takes place in Paris at the beginning, and it's in France. And it is about a family that has immigrated there for safety, during the war, as Jewish families were doing. They had moved into France. The family still spoke mainly Yiddish, but the daughter had learned French and some German and of course Yiddish. And they are rounded up at one point because they're going to be taken away. They had already been moved at the start of the book. They'd already all been moved into, basically a ghetto. And they were at one point in the course of the story at the beginning of the book, all of the families are rounded up from the ghetto and taken to I can't remember the name of it. I know the name of it. Like a big Coliseum type thing. And they're going to be taken to camps. They'd received a heads up. And so the father had already gone off to hide. At the time, they didn't think, they'd only taken men, and they didn't think that they would be targeting women and children, but they take the women and the children. She hears a loud bang. It's the middle of the night. She hears a loud bang, and she can't find her mother. And so she believes that her mother has been killed through most of the book. She's taken to the location, and with a neighbor whose little girl she has a good friendship with. The little girl is very little, like a toddler. And that woman tells her to take that toddler and run. That she can blend in. She speaks French. She can blend in, keep her daughter safe, and when everything is over, they'll reunite. We've read a lot of stories like this, right? While she's trying to blend in, a soldier asks to see her papers, and she doesn't have papers. And then, her papers will say that she's a Jew. And a nun saves her, finds a place for her. What's really great about the beginning of this, when everything is kind of being settled into place, is that these Catholic nuns are very gray. It's not, well, of course I'm going to save this girl. Ultimately, she does make the choice in the moment to save her, but had she had to sit and think about it, she probably would have chosen not to. And so what I really appreciated about the beginning of this whole setup was that it wasn't like the good guys and the bad guys. It was like, this is the situation. This is how I feel about the situation. These are the consequences if I take this path, and if I take this path, and what choice am I going to make? It felt very real, very realistic. I really appreciated that. When she settled into this place, she gets sent to like a school. She believes that the people at the school all think that they think she's a communist because she's not Catholic. She doesn't know how to be Catholic, but it's a Catholic girls' school. And, but they think that she's been sent there. They don't have any idea who she is. The little girl is fostered to a family in the area, but she doesn't know where she is. And over the course of the story, I'll stop telling you because this is just the beginning, but it gets really, really good. She doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't trust anyone, but there's a lot of people who would like her to trust them. The nuns need to trust her because an accident happens and she ends up having to help some of the nuns who are helping people escape, because the school just happens to be located next to a real life place, which was a castle through which you could enter via France, but exit via Switzerland. And so she's helping people make their way to this place to escape, to help these nuns who've been helping people, but one has an accident and can no longer do it. So she's risking her life all the time. And in the course of this, she meets a woman who ends up being Catherine de Medici's ghost. And I really, really loved this strange layer because it enables certain conversations to be had that might not be havable otherwise, about hindsight, about regret, about willful ignorance, the danger of willful ignorance. And I just thought that there's so much to ponder in this book as an adult and as a child. It doesn't give you easy answers. It gives you really complex, difficult problems. And it shows you how some people handle them and how other people handle them and the results of each. And I really appreciated it so much. There's so much potential for critical thinking through the reading of this book. And I just thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, I loved this. This definitely might be one of my favorite books of the year. The next book I finished was another one for middle grade March, and I loved it. This is When Sally O'Malley Discovered the Sea by Karen Cushman. And this is about found family. One of the things that I absolutely loved about this is that it takes place in Old West, Oregon. And yes, I am from the Pacific Northwest, pretty open about that. I was actually not born in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a California girl, but I've lived all over the place. And as an adult, there are a couple of places that have become like my heart's home. And one of those places is absolutely Oregon. Oh, I love Oregon so much. I love Portland so much. And to read about Old West Oregon, to hear, stores like Meijer and Frank be mentioned, but only in an 1880s context, to hear about, the path to take to Seaside in the 1880s is just, it was so much fun. It was so much fun for a person who knows Oregon. If you don't know Oregon, it's still such a great story about found family and survival and finding who you are, learning to trust people, learning to open up, and forming bonds. Yeah, it's a beautiful little story about a girl who has no one at the beginning who ends up with a whole family at the end, a whole family that she stitches together herself, a whole family of people who have no family. And I loved it. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. The next book that I have finished here is not actually Hannah Coulter. This is a great one, though. That is a placeholder for The Correspondent, which I listened to for my In Real Life book group. The Correspondent. When you listen to it on 2.5 speed, it's just over 3 hours long, and I did listen to the whole thing in one go, which is a lot of letters to be listening to. I am not one that gets on very often with epistolary novels. I find them to be too jolting, like too start and stopping. I am a plot girly. I need plot, I need character, I need setting. And in most epistolary novels, I feel like plot really suffers, and I feel like setting really suffers a lot of the time. Not all of the time, there's exceptions to everything. But I always go into an epistolary novel with very low expectations. And sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised, and sometimes I'm confirmed. And this was okay. I know people love this book, and I had heard nothing but good things. I still have heard nothing but good things. I haven't had my conversation with my people yet. My In Real Life book club will meet on Tuesday. But so I'm curious to know how I process through things after talking to them, because lots of times they can either soften or even sometimes change my perspective on a book. I've struggled with all of the books that we have read so far this year. There's three, but all of them. I've really struggled. And I was hopeful. I was most hopeful about this one, and because I'd heard only good things. And I think all those good things are absolutely true. I just don't think it was a book for me. It's very sweet. It's very tender. It's a very tender book. I love, these are things it has going for it, okay? I love that it's an older protagonist. It's always wonderful to read from an older protagonist's perspective. I don't always like them, but I think there should be more of them. And she gets a love story, and we love elderly love. She's in her 70s, so yeah, we love elderly love. We love second chances. We love introspection, which is something she gets to. So the letters start out kind of surfacey, kind of like masks. You can tell that there are other things that need to be talked about that aren't talked about. I think in the very first letter, she talks about a letter she's been writing for years. So you know that there are bigger things going on, and it feels like it's just so mundane for most of the book, but actually big things are happening. We're viewing it through someone's internal mechanism because it's a letter. I don't know. I don't quite know how to say why reading other people's letters to tell a story feels like I'm so far removed from those people. I think technically I should feel closer to the characters because they're talking to me, but I don't. I don't. I love to read people's letters and journals that are real letters and journals, like the letters of Charlotte Bronte, the letters of Jane Austen, the journals of, I don't know, so-and-so, the letters of Van Gogh. I love that kind of thing because I feel like it gives me real insight into a person who really exists, who I already probably know about. I don't want you to tell me a story through letters and text messages and court documents and things like that. The exception to that is the woman who wrote like the Alberton Angels. What is that woman's name? Those mysteries are quite fun when presented in that way. I'm trying to think if there are any other exceptions. Dear Mr. Hinshaw from when I was a kid by Beverly Cleary, maybe. I'm trying to think if there are any other exceptions. Has there ever, the one I read for Jane Austen, July, just last year. What's that one called? Evelina. But that's very plot heavy. Like, those letters are not letters. They are, but they're not. Yeah, epistolary novels are really not my thing. So I just felt distanced from the whole storyline. I read about her grief and her shame and her self-loathing. I didn't feel her grief and her shame and her self-loathing. I read about her romance. I didn't feel her romance. I read about her relationship with Colt. I didn't experience her relationship with Colt. So, I don't think it will stick with me. I don't think I'll remember it. Maybe I will, and maybe I'll go back and give it a higher rating. But for now, I just gave it a 3. There is nothing wrong with this book. I understand why people love it. I do. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me. And I was sad about that. I really wanted to make it work for me, and it just didn't. I read this one. If you watched my TBR, you will know that the cards, which I think I've already talked about, the cards had me pick this book off of my shelf destruct. And I was scared about that. Not because I didn't think I would love it, but because I've owned this book for such a long time and I have yet to read it. Well, I've read it now. I have a weird niche obsession with Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, with his obsession with Napoleon. Where did it come from? I don't know. Why does it stick around? I don't know. Is it real? Oh yeah, it's real. I love reading about how obsessed he was with his ultimate lifelong rival, Napoleon. And I have read a lot of books about Waterloo as a result. I've read a lot of information about his military tactics. I've read about his role in government, particularly in the switchover from what's-his-face, William, to Victoria. I find all of that fascinating for some reason. And he's what they all have in common, right? And in 2016, when I spent a significant amount of time in England, going to his house and taking the tour there was one of the absolute highlights. I think about it frequently. Why do we have these niche interests? I don't know, but it's one of mine. And so I wanted to read this book. I got this book before I went to England, like, I don't know, 8 years before I went to England. I started it multiple times and I just never got very far. And so I put it on my shelf destruct list to kind of give myself the push to read it, because I knew I would like it if I read it. Lo and behold, I read it and I loved it. It's gossipy, it's interesting. He is a hard man to love. And also, you know, he's on a scale of like, I don't know, on a scale of like Wordsworth to Byron, he's somewhere in the middle. I really, really enjoyed this. I like him a little bit less, but I really enjoyed this quite a lot. And I also really enjoyed learning about his wife and all of that. Yeah. I finished reading my 12 and 12. I just finished this last night, actually. This is How Women in the Bible Advance the Story of Salvation, Redeeming Eden by Ingrid Faro with Joyce Ku Dalrymple, and a foreword by Skye Jethani. So the way this is set up is that Ingrid Faro has done the theological work here, and Joyce Ku Dalrymple has created like bookends, like parameters around the information to help you kind of turn it into a personal devotional or a personal study. And so you'll read a chapter and there'll be all of this researched theological information, scriptural information. And then at the end, there comes some like discussion questions, key points, and a prayer, something else. So there's a reflection section, reflect on the chapter, reflect on your life, take a bold step, and a breath prayer at the end of every chapter. And those parts are done by Joyce Ku Dalrymple. So it's an interesting take on a book. It's an interesting book, just the format of it. It also includes access to a program. There's a video, a 10 to 15 minute video that accompanies each chapter where the author, where Ingrid Faro, and interviewed by Joyce Ku Dalrymple or introduced by Joyce Ku Dalrymple in each video, kind of gives the highlights of the text itself, of the chapter itself. Honestly, I think you could watch the video or read the chapter and you'd get all the same information. I watched a few of the videos, but then I just went into the reading. I was like, I can read this faster. There's a lot of good information in this. I do think it's pretty introductory information. So if you are a person who has spent quite a lot of time, read quite a few books on the scriptural biblical role of womanhood, of the female, you may, and read about women within the culture of biblical times, regardless of what religion or people group they were, you might find some new information, but I think most of what you find will just be confirming what you already have encountered. What this book has going for it, besides the like Bible study devotional aspect, is that it is highly readable. It's all that same information which I've obtained through denser texts. This text has all that same information, but it's very approachable. It's very thoughtfully organized. You come to the book, and the first couple of chapters are basically a deep dive into the first couple of chapters of Genesis, of the creation story, with a real focus on context, historical and social context, and translation work, Hebrew translation to other languages such as German and English, and how key words that have been used to twist scriptural meaning to politically and socially align gender roles with cultures that may not value women in the same way that they're valued in the creation story. Those key terms such as rib or helper turn out to not mean rib or helper under any circumstance, really. And you see, for example, helper, you see every time except for in Genesis, that the word that is used to express help is often applied to God, the Holy Spirit, armies, not the submissive helpmate that has been preached to us. And yeah, I won't go any further into that, but you can see where the book is going. Each subsequent chapter after those first two, which kind of really set up the intended role of the woman and of Eve. When I say the woman, I mean Eve. The intended role of Eve and not just intended, the way that Scripture portrays Eve and the way that Scripture portrays the sacredness of Eve is expressed in the first couple of chapters. And then after that, each subsequent chapter is focused on a specific woman in the Old Testament. Let's see, if you're familiar with the Bible stories, you are going to be familiar with all of these names. So there's a chapter on Sarah, Tamar, women who instigate the Exodus, Rahab, Deborah, Ruth, Hannah, and then Bathsheba. I really enjoyed that Bathsheba chapter. It's called Recovering Bathsheba's Dignity. I really liked it. And then there is an epilogue of women in the Gospels and beyond. To be honest, I would have been so much more interested in more about New Testament women, but that's okay. That's okay. What this is important and good. And really well articulated, easy to read, easy to get into. For example, let's see if I can quickly find, I highlighted a ton of stuff just because I liked the way that it was stated. I will say there's not a whole lot in here that was brand new to me. And a book that I might recommend for you if this information feels like probably something you're already well-versed in, I would recommend Marilynne Robinson's Reading Genesis, which is a lot denser, a little more poetic, but contains a lot of the same information, but in a very, very different manner. Obviously, it doesn't contain the information about the other women in the Bible, because reading Genesis is literally just reading Genesis, but highly recommend that one. This, just the first thing that I highlighted, you can see it's quite a big little passage there. It says, when God created Adam, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them, and he called their name humankind when they were created. And when Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a child in his likeness, according to his image, and he called his name Seth. Just as humans did not lose their status as image bearers after the fall, neither did humans lose their status as divine image bearers after the flood. For in Genesis 9:5-7, God requires every human to give account for the way they treat every other human being. Let's go back on that a little bit. Let's read that again. God requires every human to give account for the way they treat every other human being. Because in his own image, God made mankind. And God repeats the creation blessing he first spoke in Genesis. God never stops taking personally the way every human treats another human God never stops taking personally the way one human treats another human, especially the way people in positions of power or influence treat others. We hear this throughout the words of the psalmists and the prophets, and we hear this in the words of Jesus, who points out that God's rulership is in stark contrast to human rulership, saying, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant." Furthermore, Jesus tells us that he takes personally the way we treat every other human being. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." God elevates every human being, no matter how marred or broken, and expects us to do the same. God's plan from the beginning has never changed. Who we are and who God expects us to be in this physical universe sets the foundation for how we view and treat every person, man and woman. Any reading of Scripture that twists this truth corrupts the mission of God, which he declared from the beginning was very good. The last thing I'll note about this, which is also really beautifully stated in reading Genesis, is this distinction between Yahweh God, between the God of the Bible and all the other competing gods. God's not competing with them, but they're competing for the time and hearts of and worship of the people who are populating the earth at that time. Other people groups, other religions at the time, the Ammonites, the Sumerians, these people, created clay, gold, and bronze gods in their own images. And the God of the Old Testament created us in its image, so that we essentially have become the idols. There's also this point, where God breathes life. He forms Adam and then he breathes life into it. Something really sweet in the Redeeming Eden book is the way that she talks about that translation, that it's like a mother blowing onto a baby, just like this little, like so intimate and sweet and familiar. So there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff in there. But yeah, I've already said way more than I would normally say, because not everybody who watches this holds the same belief system as me. I understand that. All right. Final one that I've read thus far. This is Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. Shopaholic Ties the Knot. I've been reading a Sophie Kinsella every month in honor of her passing last year. She is one of my favorite authors and will retain that status forevermore. I have been prioritizing the Shopaholic series because it's been a long time since I've reread that. There are, I believe, 9 books in the Shopaholic series, so obviously I can't read one a month for the whole year. So a few months out of the year, I'll be reading some of my favorite standalones by her, which I have recently reread all of her standalones, but I'm really, really just picking a few favorites. And I'm doing that so that I can end my Shopaholic reading spree this year in December with Christmas Shopaholic, which is the last book that she wrote for that series. So yeah, that's where we are now. I am thoroughly tired. I'm tired. I am very tired. So I'm going to take a rest, I think. I think I'm going to put on a movie or something and just take a rest and chill. Yeah. when you see me again, actually, the next time you see me is going to be in the video that I record tomorrow about Wuthering Heights. That'll go out before this. So you'll see me in the Wuthering Heights video, but for the purposes of this video, the next time you see me will probably be at the very end of the month as I do a final check-in on all the rest of the books that I have read. I anticipate there will be quite a few because I'm going to do a big push of the shorter, quicker middle grades that I want to get to this month. And then I am in the midst of multiple longer, more grown-up books as well, and those will be wrapping up over the course of this week. So yeah, I anticipate there'll be another big bunch. Read a lot in February, reading a lot in March. Feels good. Feels good. Still won't finish my TBR, but it feels good. I'll see you in a minute. This mug from Soul. It's got all sorts of stuff on it from me drinking out of it all morning, but this mug from Soul is among the oldest mugs, but has been with me the longest. It has been on 2 different continents with me. Three different continents with me. No, 2 different continents, 3 different countries with me. And it has traveled with me into 5 states. So it's been with me a while. It's seen the world. Yeah, I definitely, it's a little smaller than they make mugs these days, most mugs anyway. And it fits perfectly in my hand. I got another mug when I was in Korea that was like a celadon color, and I bought it on just a freezing cold day in January. So cold I thought my nose was literally going to fall off if I touched it. And I accidentally broke that one in India. Like, it went with me from Seoul to India, and I didn't break it, but someone accidentally broke it. And that was the perfect shaped mug. It was like bulbous near the top and tapered at the bottom, and such a delicious shade of green. I miss it still. But I digress. Before I've even begun, I digress. We are here to wrap up the fantabulous month of March. I have, as I promised, I have just a whole nother stack of books here that I have finished since the last time I checked in. March is not quite over yet, but I've already finished 26 books. Two of those I have been reading for several months and just happened to finish in March. Bunches of those are middle grade books. And I think I read like 6 or 7 nonfiction books in the month of March, which is wild for me. And then about halfway through the month, it dawned on me that don't we usually do women's, like, doesn't Coiny from Coiny Reads usually host women's History Month during this month, and she didn't do it this year. And at first I didn't even remember. But then I started thinking about standout books, because I feel like I don't have very many standout books for me from this month. But I started thinking about standout books from past Marches and realized that there's always been this like nice balance of nonfiction and middle grade for me in the month of March in my planning, because of Women's History Month being celebrated at the same time as Middle Grade March on BookTube. And I was going to say Bookstagram, same difference in my mind. But I just realized that no, we didn't get an announcement. Did I just miss it? I don't know. But now I'm feeling a loss. A loss of something I didn't realize I was missing. But once I realized it, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to go back in time now. I have to do March again. You cannot. You can only move forward. But you know what? I could do a bunch of women's nonfiction in April, and it will feel the same. So maybe I'll do that. I've already put out my April TBR, but maybe I'll enhance it with some surprise nonfiction women's history reads, because I really do value them. I really do. So anyway, I've said a lot of kind of important things in that ramble. Number one, I read a wild amount of not women's history related, well, I suppose two of them are. But I've read a wild amount of nonfiction in the month of March. I also read a majority middle grade and a handful of adult novels, mostly for commitments. Like, I read The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie for Books Love Everyone book group. I read The Correspondent for my In Real Life book group. I read, that was a nonfiction. I read, which was also maybe women's history. I read Redeeming Eden for my 12 and 12. And then I read just such a sparing amount of just like grown-up nonfiction. I've read 26 books, but I feel like I haven't read almost anything this month. It's a very strange feeling. I look at the stacks, I look at the lists, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I read so much, and yet I feel a little bit hollow about what I've read in the month of March. It is what it is. It is what it is. Let's just go ahead and wrap this puppy up. So I was moving some books around and I stumbled upon this one, which is Help, I'm a Prisoner in the Library by Eve Clifford. It's a short, really wonderful, there are illustrations. It's a short, really wonderful book from my childhood. I remember my dad came home when I was in, second grade probably, and said, I found a book for you. This is your book. And he was so right. This was my book. He was thinking because I loved to spend time in the library when I was little, and I loved books. And I was like, I read it and I was like, oh, this is so good, because there's a little mystery. It's a little humorous. It's pretty high stakes if you're a kid, because these two sisters in a very cold climate get accidentally locked into a library while their mom is in the hospital delivering a sibling, and their father is supposed to be looking after them, and nobody knows where they are. And so it's pretty high stakes. They run into some kind of scary situations, but in the end, all is well. And it's just a delightful little tale. I think it was originally published in 1979. It was originally published in 1979. It has sweet vibes. It does. And I reread it because I just picked it up. I saw it on my shelf. I picked it up and sat down and reread it in a very short amount of time on a whim. And it was a lovely revisit. Here's one of those nonfictions I read. This was a middle grade nonfiction, and this was really good. This was really good, actually. This is nonfiction about the magical myths and lost legends of Britain. And I did actually learn some things from this. For example, I didn't realize there was a King Lear connection to the city of Bath. I really, really enjoyed the way that these stories are told. Plus, it is just a visually stunning book. It has so many of these stark and striking illustrations and details throughout, and it's a treasure. It's a treasure. I enjoyed it immensely while I was reading it. I think that a lot of it will inspire other things that I do, poetry, short stories, etc. And I will definitely, next time I get to teach Shakespeare to an older crowd, I'm currently teaching Midsummer Night's Dream to 7th graders. But when I get to encounter an older crowd, I will definitely pull out the information about the founding of Bath and the connection to King Lear there. Otherwise, though, it's not the kind of book that I'm going to be like, ooh, I can't wait to reread that. But it will be the kind of book that I use as a reference. And also, I can definitely imagine giving this to younger middle graders in my life. My niece, for example, when she gets several years older, because it's the kind of storybook that I, as a child, would have absolutely pored over constantly. I would not have read it beginning to end. I would have dipped in and out of it and just terribly enjoyed the stories that were being told. I also read the third book in both of these series that I am revisiting this year. I have now reached the last book. This was the last book that I read as a child in the series, and there's 1 or 2 more, so they will be completely new to me, and I look forward to picking them up after April. Not going to read any of these in April. I read the third one in Beverly Cleary's Ramona series. She's in 1st grade in this one, and she's got some disappointments in life. Things are not as they should be for her sense of right and wrong. And she's feeling kind of disillusioned about growing up. And it's very dear. This is a dear little series, as we mostly all know. And this, I think, is a very dear installment because a lot of the things that she has to tap into her courage and her bravery for, we as adults also have to tap into our courage and bravery for, just with a different set of building blocks and tools. But yeah, this was relatable and just very dear. I'm not going to be reading the 4th book in April. I'm taking a break from all middle grade. I'm reading all grown up, mostly romance, mystery, and like family saga type books. Excuse me, that is not for you. Oh, no, little miss. She helped herself to the birdhouse, to the decorative birdhouse, which I painted a million years ago. There's the back of it. It's very whimsical, very sweet. It's just decorative. Anyway, if she would cease to choose violence, things would be much smoother. Then I read one which was really, really wonderful. That's The Hannah by Marguerite D'Angeli. Again, wonderful illustrations. Some of the full page color illustrations. I want to get another copy of this so I can pull some of these out and frame them because they're just my cup of tea. This is about a young girl who, if you read the foreword, is apparently inspired by a real person that Marguerite D'Angeli knew because the introduction is written by DeAngeli's son, and he refers to Hannah as Aunt Hannah Severance, was approaching 90 when she and Mama first became acquainted. So this is the story of a real person. It's a fictionalized story of a real person whose family was Quaker. She was Quaker, and they were helping with the Underground Railroad. The majority of this, though, all of this, is told through the story of the little girl. And the majority is just what it's like to be a little girl at this time with a family that is socially minded and taking action on social issues of the day. But she is aware of that, and she helps in those things. But it's such a part of their lives that you also see, equally what's important to her as parts of her life, such as like wishing she could have fancier clothes, because as a Quaker, they have so much fun and they have so much abundance and they are so rich in so many ways. And they also tend toward the serious side and, a little bit more piety than party. She and her sister and her brothers have dolls. Their father makes them this really amazing sled. They go sledding. They play pranks on each other. There's an abundance of delicious, rich food. They're not denying themselves necessary things, but they also aren't feeding their vanity, I guess, is the way to think of it. And she is a little bit vain, and wishes she could express that vanity in other ways than are appropriate within her family belief system. And so you see those things. It's all very gentle, very natural, very honest. You never feel like the writer is, like Marguerite d'Angely is, Marguerite d'Angely is making her bad in any sense of the word. And she doesn't feel bad in any sense of the word. It's just that this is a value her family has. And sometimes she dreams of having other values. And so there's all of that in there. Her brothers are they're pictured here on the back, incredibly rambunctious. Because they're Quakers, some of their peers pick on them and they wear these hats. And their peers like to bully them by pulling the hats down far over their heads so that they hurt their foreheads. They get stuck. Sometimes the top pops off. Well, one of their maids, who's not a Quaker, says, "Oh, come with me, come to the kitchen tonight and I'll show you how to stop that from happening." They stick from the inside tacks so that the pointers are up at the top, so that when the bullies come and bang down on the hat to try and push it down over their forehead, they get all hurt on their hand. So I'm telling you, these are normal children who just happen to also be involved in social action because their family is involved in social action, and to hold a set of values that mean that, they aren't peacocks in the world. And it is a really, really lovely book. It's beautifully written. It's very atmospheric. It's very, very thoughtful and compulsive and life-affirming book. And I highly recommend it to everyone. And I followed it with another one that was just like that. The totally different kind of family, totally different kind of belief system. Not totally different, but a totally different family. Early turn of the 20th century, like late 1800s, early 1900s family here. Happy little family in Kentucky. Lots of children, lots of mischief. The littlest one is kind of our focus, although we do get to know the whole family. And the littlest one at the start is turning 4. She's 4 years old. The things that this child is expected and capable of at 4 years old would astound families today. But there she is. And she's just very precocious. All of the children are. It's an incredibly loving family. This book is just a warm hug of a slice of life story. If you enjoy All of a Kind Family or Little House, or like if you enjoy family stories, you'll really, really love this. I highly recommend. Highly recommend. Although I preferred the Hannah, that is of the same ilk. It's of the same vein. Next, I read The Royal Rabbits of London. I listened to this on audio. The audio was free on, it was among the free picks that you can get on Audible. And so I listened to it in about 2 hours while I was cleaning the kitchen. And it was so good. This would make such a great read aloud, like a bedtime read aloud or a classroom read aloud. It lends itself to that really, really well. It too, though, has wonderful illustrations, so you're going to want to have a copy of the text on hand. I would like to continue on. This is a series. I would like to continue on in this series. In this one, Shiloh the bunny senses something is afoot, but he is really well known for being just a scaredy cat or a scaredy bunny. And no one will really listen to him or take him seriously. He's kind of small. He's kind of deemed incapable of things, but he wants to stop something from happening that he thinks is going to happen. And this is how he finds his courage and how he becomes a symbol of courage for the rabbits of London. And it's good. It's really, really good. It's a little bit funny. It's very sweet. It's very well written. I loved this one too. I just got done saying that I didn't have a great reading month, but obviously I did. Obviously I did. I just need to talk it through, I guess. This is Fog Magic by Julia L. Sauer. And in this one, you have Greta. You have a girl named Greta, and I have to read you, like, this, the sense of place in this, the characterization, the vocabulary, the way the story unfolds. So this is just the beginning of this tale. Chapter 1, and yes, there are chapters, but the book is only 107 pages long. So Chapter 1, The Spell of the Fog. From the time she was a baby in her cradle, Greta had loved the fog. Every soul in the little fishing village at the foot of the mountains had learned to accept the fog. It was part of their life. They knew that for weeks on end they must live within its circle, but they had made no pretense of liking it. Those who tilled their little plots of land hated it when it kept their hay from drying. The men who fished dreaded it, for it either kept them on shore altogether and cut down their meager earnings, or it made their hours on the sea more dangerous than ever. Only the lobster poachers who robbed honest men's lobster pots or set their own out of season liked it. The lobster poachers and small Greta. And with Greta, it was more than liking. On days when the gray clouds of fog rolled in from the sea and spread over the village, she would watch it drift past the windows with a look on her small face that almost frightened her mother. "Goodness, child," Gertrude Addington would say to the mite in the high chair. "You look as if you were seeing things, and pleasant things at that. I believe you like this beastly fog. Don't you know your father is out there, like as not running on a reef this very minute, and my clean clothes mildewing for want of a bit of proper sun to dry them?" But then Greta would gurgle so happily and throw wide her arms with such eagerness to grasp and hold this queer gray smoke that Gertrude's irritability would vanish like the fog itself when the sun comes suddenly through. And the whole story feels like that. Like someone is telling you a fairy tale that may be a little more real and close than most fairy tales are. In this, you have Greta, as we have established, and she loves the fog, and no one loves the fog except the lobster poachers and Greta. And when she grows up, one day the fog comes in, and with it comes this old boat that she gets on that can take her into adventures unknown. Really, really loved this. Really loved it. If I had found that book as a child, it would be among my best childhood memories. I would have eaten it up as a child. I would have read it front to cover 1,000,000 times. Front to cover? Front to back. 1,000,000 times. Okay, here's one of those that I finished in March that I started way back in January. And that is The Winter Sea by Susanna Kersley. This is a mystery to me. It's a mystery book, but it's a mystery to me because Susanna Kersley is always hit or miss for me, always. My favorite by her is Bellwether. I love Bellwether. I've read it several times and kind of want to read it again all the time. I love it. I'm very familiar with her writing. This felt the same, but something about it made it so slow to get through. It took months to read this book, literally. And although I really enjoyed it, what's her name? What's the woman's name? Carrie. Although I really enjoyed Carrie and how she's moving into, she's a writer and she's in France to write. She's in France to write her next. Oh goodness. She's in France to write her next book, and she writes historical fiction, and she kind of bases some of it off of her own family history, and she goes to visit her publisher or her editor, I think her editor, at their house, her and her husband and her newborn baby's house in Scotland. And when she lands, is it Scotland? Yes. I just thought for a moment maybe it was Northern England, but it's definitely Scotland. When she lands in Scotland, she rents a car and she's driving to the home that she's going to go see her editor at. And she sees these ruins. She gets lost, and this man with a dog helps her read the map or tell her where to go. He seems significant right from the very beginning, and he is. And she sees these ruins, and she feels kind of drawn to them. She feels really drawn to them. And the next day, she and her editor go out to visit them, and she has these feelings like she often, I guess, does have, where she's kind of time traveling a little bit, but maybe it's just like, it's not super clear. Like, is there time travel happening? Is it just like ghosts? Is it like shared ancestral memory, like genetically passed through? But she gets in touch with a person from her distant genealogical past, and is kind of inadvertently reliving parts of and telling that person's story. She didn't mean to, but it happens. And while she is there, when she goes to these ruins, she ends up feeling so strongly drawn to the place, and it would be more convenient for her and her editor if she were closer anyway. So she ends up renting a small cottage in the town within walking distance of these ruins, and leaving France behind. And yeah, like that's the basic premise of the story. And then this larger story unfolds, and you start having dual timelines and things like that. The bits where she's first settling in to the cottage really stand out because it's really establishing like a sense of place. And so you get fun interactions with her and her older, really kind of fatherly, but also a little bit curmudgeonly, landlord who has a cute son. And just interesting things that I don't know exist until I read about them, like having to pay a meter coins. Like there's a coin run meter in the cottage where she has to like front load for electrical use. And if those coins run out, she has to be able to put more in. And so they have a system, because nobody cares. So they have a system where he'll just come and open the box for her, retrieve the coins instead of keeping them, give them back to her so she can put them back into the box so she can continue to have electricity. I feel like I know that exists, but I never think about the fact that that has existed and that probably it still exists in some places. And it just, there's very, I don't know, it's curious, it's captivating. Little details like that. I really love the way that his dialect and his vernacular is written on the page. I can really hear him as he's speaking. And the romance bits in this are lovely in both. I mean, they're maybe not lovely. They're enthralling in both timelines. There's so much going for this book, so much that I actually really loved. And yet at the same time, it took me months to finish this book. So many times I thought, I'm just going to softy and F it and put it to the side. But I felt intrinsically that if I put it to the side, if I softy and F'd it, I would never go back. I would never go back. I'm really glad I finished it. I will probably, there's 2 more books in the series. I will probably read them at some point. I feel no desire. I don't feel an apprehension, but I also feel no desire to pick them up anytime soon. What is that? Did I love this? Did I hate it? I didn't feel meh about it. I mean, I obviously quite enjoyed it. And it took me months to read it. So, yeah, The Winter Sea, Susanna Kersley. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know. I read the 4th book in this series, which I think I only have 1 or 2 left. 4 years ago, I read the first one and decided then and there that every middle grade March, until I had finished the series, I would read the next one. I have done that, and I have loved every moment. Every moment. And when the series is done, I may just go back and start the first one again. I don't know. Because now March will not maybe feel like March without The Incorrigible Children. So, The Incorrigible Children of Ashton Place. This is the interrupted tale. I cannot tell you anything about it. If you have not read, because it's 4th in the series, if you have not read this series, let me highly recommend that you get yourself a copy of the actual text, because you're going to want to underline things. There are definitely moments of great wisdom and insight in these stories, but there's also these glorious illustrations. But, and I cannot stress this enough, even if you think you're not an audiobook person, you need the audio. You need the audio for these books, because the audio is absolute perfection. Absolute perfection. I saved this one. I thought it would be my last. I saved it for last. But in the end, I ended up also reading Jean and Johnny by Beverly Cleary. This is so floppy, so floppy. This feels so nice to read. It's like a nice weight and flops perfectly, but not annoyingly so. It's perfect. This, who published this? Harper Trophy? More like this. Jean and Johnny. This was a reread for me, but it has been many a decade since I read it for the first time, and I remembered it differently. I remembered only that Jean is young and Johnny is old. Like, Jean is, I think, a sophomore and Johnny is a senior. And I remember that he pursues her, and it's so romantic. It's so much better than that, guys. It's so much better than that. So the cards chose this for me. I had it on my TBR shelves, and in February I did, I think, 4 or 5 picks. Let the cards pick 4, I think, books. And this is one that they picked. And I would not probably have picked this up anytime soon. On the TBR for the card picking, I have books I haven't read yet, birthday book haul books, shelf destruct books, books that I've had on my TBR that I kind of want to prioritize for this year. I won't get through them all, obviously, but would like to really pick from those. Books that come in this year, the books that I haul this year. I don't really do book hauls except for my birthday book haul once a year. But I've always got a trickle of books coming in. So they go on these shelves. And books that I really wanted to reread. This was among the books I really wanted to reread, but I didn't have any plans. I don't have any plans for most of the books that are on my TBR. And, excuse me, the Cards picked this. And at first I was like, oh, well, this is, a good choice because it's middle grade March, and this isn't quite middle grade, but it's YA and it's young, and it's written by Beverly Cleary, who is who is a middle grade author, most predominantly. And as the month progressed, I wasn't entirely sure that I would really get to it. But I did. I really did. I read 3 books this month that the Cards had picked. And when the Cards pick books and I don't get to them in that month that they pick them, I'm leaving them on my immediate TBR shelf. So over here, underneath the record player, there's my immediate shelf. There are 2 shelves there of books. That top one that you can kind of see books on the corner is the incoming month. So those are April books there. And then down below, I have on one side, I have the next month hopefuls. So books that I see and I think, ooh, maybe I'll read that in May. I put those over there. And then I also have on the other side, books that were on TBRs, January, February, and March now, that I didn't get to, but that I still want to get to. So I'll filter the ones that I don't get to back onto the shelves, or put them down there as filler priorities. So if I am not feeling inspired at any point in the month by my April TBR, I will, before I go to anywhere else, like the library or my TBR shelves or whatever, I will look at those books and try and pick from those books first so that I'm still getting through my TBRs. And I've put all of the books that the Cards have picked that I don't get to there. And this month I read 1 from February and 2 that were earmarked for March. And I'm really proud of myself for that. Really proud of myself for that. Because I used to be like a say it and read it kind of reader, like a really, I don't want to say strict, but like if I said I was going to say a book, if I said I was going to read a book, I would read that book whether I felt like reading it or not. And I think that was all of the mindset of my graduate work in English literature, my graduate work in general, my doctorate. Like I was very trained and comfortable with reading what needed to be read. And the further away I get from being in any kind of school where anybody's telling me what to read, the further away I get from that, the more of a mood reader I am becoming. And I was a mood reader prior to being in university for a million years off and on. Prior to that, I was absolutely a mood reader. I never would have made any kind of TBR or anything like that. I did buy a lot of books and had, stacks of books coming in from the library all the time from childhood to the present day. But I definitely didn't make a list of books that I would read in a certain amount of time. And I love making TBRs. I have learned that making lists of books and connections between books and kind of using my, one of my degrees is in curriculum and instruction planning. So using my skills in that, my skill set in that to figure out what books to read, when to read them, and how to best support my reading in a month to create not necessarily themes, sometimes themes, but through-way connectors is a joy. I absolutely love doing it. And I also want to read when I want to read when I want to read it. And so I'm really proud of myself for reading these books that I had no intention of reading at any point when they were actually picked for me by fate, and just sitting down and doing it anyway. And each one that I have read has been a winner. I have adored each one that I have read. So this month that was Alma. Can't remember the whole title of it, the supernatural World War II one, and Wellington, which was one of my Shelf-Destruct books, which I finally read, and Jane and Johnny. Well, this was so much better than I remembered. You're probably like, is she ever going to get back to that? This was so much better than I remembered, because in this, all that I said was true. Jean is, I think, a sophomore. She's 15. And so maybe a junior, but she's younger. She reads younger than Johnny. Johnny is a senior on his way out of high school and into college, or the workforce. And he decides that he really likes Jean, but he really wants Jean to be a certain way. And he really wants Jean to let him do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, with whoever he wants. Mind you, this is written in the 1950s, so I always put like a Gidget sort of a filter on it, on the characters and the way they talk. And, you know, I think it takes place in California or maybe Oregon, but which is where Beverly Cleary was from, but I get California vibes off of it. But that could just be my Gidget filter. and when I say Gidget, I mean the old movies. Gidget Goes Hawaiian, Gidget and the Doctor, just those. So when I read Jean and Johnny, I think Gidget. And it works well. So I kind of imagine those sorts of vibes. And Johnny was a little bit of a moondoggy, if you know what that means. Moondoggy is the guy that Gidget loves, but it's like his surfer persona. He's not always moondoggy. He has an actual name. Jeff is his actual name. And so Johnny is in his moondoggy era, I think. And this is the way I envision him. And he does not treat her very well emotionally all of the time. And Jean makes a decision. She chooses herself and is fine without having Johnny, and realizes at the end of the book, she actually like literally cuts him out of a picture. Like, she realizes at the end of the book that, yeah, he was a part of her life. And she learned some things about herself, and those are valuable, and that time was valuable, and it's over. And this is why. And it's just, it doesn't trivialize young romance, but it doesn't romanticize poor behavior. And it's just so well done. And I wish that it wasn't. Like, for me to get to envision the 1950s is perfect. But I can't put this in the hands of my 9th grade girls and say, read this, without them feeling like it's too far away from them. I wish that there were books that were being written that gave the same message for my girls. But what they're reading is like Colleen Hoover. Yeah, they are. They're reading Colleen Hoover. My 9th grade girls can't drive yet, and they're reading Colleen Hoover. So I wish, I wish that there were books that were being written like this. If you know of any books that have the same message, that are YA, that are being written set now, or in like a fantasy sort of an element, let me know what they are, because I haven't seen them in the YA world. Part of the reason why I've left the YA world. Yeah, let me know. Anyway, I have a feeling this is going to be a long wrap-up video, but that's okay. I read a lot of books, and I said that I feel empty, but I really obviously just kind of lit up as I was talking about these books. It was a good time. I was having a good time. So yeah, it was a good reading month. I am looking forward to reading things with a little bit more substance, I think. Maybe that is the missing factor. And getting lost in some of these stories. Like, I very rarely felt like I got lost in one of the books that I was reading. Definitely felt immersed in the Hannah and Fogg magic. Those are some favorites for sure. Anyway, this is it. It feels like I started this video ages ago. Like, the whole thing. Like, it feels like I started doing B-roll for this a million years ago. It's only been a month. A lot has happened in a month. And now, here we go. I am going to finish this wrap up a little bit before March, which means I'll have 3 or 4 days between March and April that I am reading without a camera. and I love that. I often read without a camera, but like I feel a little guilt for not checking in sometimes. And for these no man's land days, I'll just be free. Dobby is free. Thank you for handing me my proverbial sock. Me. Me. I handed myself my proverbial sock. You can too. I am going to turn this off and immediately record our Wuthering Heights video. So, yeah, this will go out after that though. So, I've already seen you and I'll see you soon. And until we meet again, I'll stop blabbering and invite you to go read. Let's go read. Let's go read.